The Oscar nominees are out, and Hollywood is preparing to make sweet, sweet love to itself. We're pillow talking the nominees, surprises, snubs, and a distinct lack of Deadpool this morning on ScreenJunkies News. All right, guys, we got a lot to talk about, so let's just dive right into it. I have an incredible panel with me today. We have Dan Merle, who actually got up at 5 o'clock in the morning to watch.
I was watching live that weird 20-minute infomercial that they did this year.
Christmas Day for Dan.
We have Mr. Jay Washington.
I've been waiting to hear about these.
And of course, Roth Cornett. On our socials, we've got Charlie Feldman. All right, you guys, who were you most excited to see on these nominees? Dan?
Well, I mean, first of all, I don't think that there were a lot of surprises as far as the main categories go. I think it was great to see Kubo and the Two Strings nominated for 2 Oscars.
Yes.
Special effects, which I read was we got a press release this morning. It was the first time since The Nightmare Before Christmas in 1994 that an animated film has been nominated for Best Special Effects.
So deserving.
So it was great to see it nominated for animated film and for special effects. Other than that, this is pretty standard. It's more about who didn't make the cut for me than who did. I could go on a whole thing with Sing Street and the Weinsteins, but we'll get to that. It was good to see Kubo get a little bit of an extra push and some extra love.
I completely agree. Roth, it seems like you already had something in mind.
Oh, about my favorites?
Yeah.
A lot of my favorites are here, but we've been talking about them all year, really. You know, I'm glad to see Moonlight, as expected, make a good showing. That's my favorite movie of the year. I also love Manchester by the Sea. We can all debate that later.
Totally.
Or now, whichever you prefer. And of course, La La Land, which I think it's really funny that you feel the backlash coming. Aziz Ansari had a sketch this weekend on Saturday Night Live about basically being arrested for not loving La La Land. Do you think that's going to play in?
It's like when the Bajancy comes after you. Like, you cannot talk smack about Beyonce. You also can't talk smack about La La Land. I think at this point, the tide is pushing so hard toward a win. Probably for Best Picture,
yes.
Almost certainly for Best Director. I don't know that you can really fight back. I just think people are like, but what else would you give it to? Moonlight? Is that what you think
I mean,
would
for
win?
me personally, I would give it to Moonlight. I like La La Land, so I'm not here to hate on that movie at all. I really like the movie, so don't arrest
That
me.
disclaimer,
Don't be mad. I love it. I've seen it 5 times, and I plan on watching it again, and I listen to it constantly in the car because I'm a nerd.
But I would go for Moonlight, yeah.
Interesting. What about you, Jay? What were you excited by? Do you think that La La Land deserves the 14 nominations?
You knew it was going to get every single nomination, no matter what. They constantly talked about this movie. It's Hollywood's rubbing itself. So, of course, when you come to let's just go. Yeah, that's what it is. It's Hollywood rubbing itself. So when you heard it, it's not surprising. I would personally like to see Moonlight get it. Fences, of course, everybody's talked about that. Though there are some people that have backlash to Fences because of it just being the play, brought to film. For me, the worst thing I saw was Suicide Squad being nominated for anything.
Oscar nominee, Suicide Squad, also Oscar nominee,
You have to say
Passengers.
Double Oscar nominee.
Double Oscar nominee.
That's crazy to me. Okay, well then let's talk about what we were surprised by. What, Rob?
Well, is that do we want to separate the quality of the overall film from sort of its parts? Because it wasn't nominated
for Best Picture.
For Best Picture, right? Passengers was nominated for
Best Score.
Best Score. And production design, arguably, maybe it deserves it.
Sure.
And then Suicide Squad was nominated for makeup.
No, it's fine. It's just a funny thing to think of. Like, of
and
all
makeup.
the movies that got nominated for no
makeup.
Oscars, Sing Street, Suicide Squad got one.
He got one.
I was happy to see things like Hidden Figures show up. I was happy to see Vigo show up for Fantastic, Captain Fantastic. And the reason is because my hope is that with these awards, more people will now see those films.
Oh, of course.
And it just gives them a little push.
It's going to definitely change the tone because, of course, one of the biggest things, and we have to discuss it, has been over the past years the controversy of Oscars so white. And now you have an unprecedented amount of non-white nominees for things. So, of course, it's going to change the tide going into years of the future. Of course, you knew you had a Viola Davis with the amazing Academy Award winning Snot.
Except here's the thing, her award-winning Snot does not need to be in the supporting category. She won the Tony for Best Actress.
Right. She should
Be a lead. There is a
that's a smart publicist. I think that's a publicist that looked at the Best Actress race and said, wow, that's a lot of people. Yeah, exactly.
That's a lot of people.
Yeah.
Amy Adams can't even get a nomination, so we're going to go ahead and put you in supporting. Although I feel like they did that a lot. Dan, you were talking about this before we started, that there's almost like a publicist meme meeting where they're like,
Yeah.
okay, this is what we think we can get a nomination for, so let's push Jeff Bridges as opposed to Ben Foster for Hell or High Water.
Yeah, if I'm gonna express any kind of frustration or disappointment about this group of nominees, because I think it's a great group of nominees, it's the fact that it seems like 6 months ago or 4 months ago, however long, the studios all got together and they decided, instead of pushing the cast of a film, they're like, okay, we're going to decide on one person from each movie, and that's what we're going to push. For example, Mahershala Ali is great in Moonlight, but Alex R. Hibbert and Ashton Sanders and Trevante Rhodes, who all played the main character and could have gone in for the supporting category, no buzz on them whatsoever, and I think they're much more integral to the movie.
Yeah.
I thought Mahershala Ali was great, but I think that they really nailed each one of them their roles. No consideration. Octavia Spencer for
Hidden Figures.
Hidden Figures. I think she was very good in the movie. I think that Taraji P. Henson and Janelle Monáe were equally as good in the movie. No discussion about either one of them. They decided Octavia Spencer's the one that we're going to back. Hell or High Water, Jeff Bridges is the one that we're going to back. Nocturnal Animals, Michael Shannon is the one that we're going to back.
It's all the people who have either been nominated or have won.
But I feel like the studios are afraid to push multiple actors for these categories because they're afraid they're going to split the vote.
So, yes,
that's
it's a totally fair point, and we've seen it play out again and again and again. Back in the day, I worked for an Oscar site briefly, and we'll talk about this more as Alicia gets back from Sundance, and we'll all talk about how sort of the Oscars and campaigns roll out. But the truth is, they do pick their battles, and the reason is because Oscar campaigns are very expensive, and they are very time-consuming, and they are a big commitment. So they go for the thing that they think that they can win in, so they can get more money on the movie in total. It's an investment, and they want a return. They want the best chance for a return. So they went for her in supporting. And I see what you're saying, but the idea, I think, with Moonlight, and I agree with what you're saying, like that cast is phenomenal.
Yeah.
But let's just get more people seeing the film and let's get these careers building up for now.
But how do you do that when, again, you say split it, you have somebody who was just as powerful as Octavia Spencer in Hidden Figures. You got a Taraji P. Henson who has been
amazing.
She's been defying all expectations. You know, people looked at her back as the girl from Hustle and Flow, and now you Cookie Line, but then you put her in Hidden Figures, and everybody's like, oh my God.
Because Viola won before.
Yeah, Viola won before, but I think it's also great that we see Hidden Figures nominated for both Best Adapted Screenplay and for Best Film and for Supporting Actress. This is great.
It deserves it. It's a great movie.
But we do have to talk about some things that are missing.
Yeah.
One thing that is missing, and we were talking about this before we started, is Deadpool in any category. Not for special effects, not for Ryan Reynolds, but I think the thing that we were all really frustrated by is how did it not pick up a Best Adapted Screenplay nomination? We have Moonlight, Arrival,
Not all
Lion.
of us are frustrated
All right,
by
fine.
that.
I was frustrated.
Okay, you've got Hidden Figures, Fences, Lion, Arrival, and Moonlight. And I'm sorry, but Fences is not an adaptation because they literally were like, remember that thing you already memorized for Broadway? Go do that entire thing on film
I haven't
exactly
seen
as you
Fences.
did it on.
I don't
Go
know.
watch YouTube.
Have you read August Wilson? It's literally
That's
the whole play verbatim.
We love you, Dan.
We love you, Dan, but all I'm saying is there are things where you're really going, like Arrival goes so outside of the box.
Yeah.
Deadpool, I look at, and that film, for me, was one of the most memorable of last year because it pushed an art form in a really interesting way.
Yep.
It's not just a superhero movie. It is such smart storytelling in every way, shape, or form. And the credit they gave the writers, the real heroes, ignored, snubbed.
Well, the credits the
and that
writers
bothers
gave
me.
themselves very smartly.
The real hero. They wrote the credit says the real hero.
I mean,
They are.
It's true, right? Like, because look, I think that is a very smart script. It's a very tight, and if you think about what actually adapting a property is, with the scope and the expanse of Deadpool, those comics, and then finding a way to tell that story in a really sharp, smart, funny script that honored what the character was all about, that's an adaptation.
Let me ask this question then real quick.
Fences is great too.
Do you think they didn't want to put it in because that means they'd have to legitimize comic book movies?
They legitimized Suicide Squad and
But
Passenger.
I mean, I'm saying besides on the makeup and the back end, when you go to screenplay, then you're really paying attention to it. You get what I'm saying? Because if that was the case, a lot of people said how Heath Ledger won posthumously after he portrayed the Joker.
For the
Joker. So if you give Deadpool a writing nom, then you're like, okay, now we got to really start looking at these comic book movies, which people should have been doing for a while, because Marvel, not DC, has been putting out good properties with a great story.
Yeah.
So do you think that's the reason they possibly snubbed it?
I think that Deadpool if Ryan Reynolds had been nominated for Best Actor, I'd have been over the moon because I think it absolutely deserved that nomination. But if we're going into the screenplay categories and stuff, I love Deadpool. It's a really fun movie, but if you're going to the screenplay, I think that it goes by on the charisma of Ryan Reynolds 100%. But I mean, that was not a revolutionary story. That was a fairly standard comic book story with a really great lead performance by a very passionate actor in the middle of it. Much like I think that Split was, a pretty good movie with a great performance anchoring it. I think that, Ryan Reynolds was so passionate and so great. But I'm looking at these are great screenplays that are nominated.
They are great screenplays.
And I don't think you should punish Fences, which is, a little bit long. And I have issues with how it was staged. But I'm not going to punish Fences because it premiered on another medium and then was adapted for film. I'm not going to say well, then that shouldn't count. Because I think that there is some really powerful writing in that story, and I think that these all have very powerful writing. So I'm not going to kick one of these out and say that Deadpool should be in there.
Andrew Garfield for Hacksaw Ridge, because I have to say there's way too much Mel Gibson love in these Oscars, way too much.
If I had to bump one person,
Andrew for Ryan?
Yes.
Me too.
I think that Andrew Garfield gives a very sincere performance, but if I have to compare them 1-to-1, and if I had to say I would get rid of one person and put in, I think that I would.
I'm just still thrilled that Viggo's nominated, and please go see Captain Fantastic if you haven't.
Can I give one quick shout out?
Yeah.
And Dan, it's true. Fences is a beautiful script. It's just that when you think about what an adaptation is and the challenges of an adaptation, that's just not what took place. But they're all deserving nominees. Aaron Taylor Johnson was so good. You guys, if you guys haven't seen Nocturnal Animals, go watch it just to watch Aaron Taylor Johnson, who won a Golden Globe for this performance. And I love Michael Shannon. He's also great in the movie. But it's interesting that Aaron Taylor Johnson won the Golden Globe and was not nominated as a supporting actor here. And it's you wish you could have them both.
You do, absolutely. Well, Charlie, we want to know what people are saying online. How do people feel? What do they think was snubbed? What's going on?
So, Dan, I think you're going to like this, but we have a number of people. We've got Dylan Moore, Jedi DMF, and Enrique de Medeiros saying, how can you make Sing Street a Main Street hit? Everyone's upset that it got snubbed for a song. La La Land has 2 songs. Moana didn't even get 2 songs for You're Welcome. Sing Street, nada.
Can I just say something to the Weinstein Company? You blew it with Sing Street. You blew it on the release. You didn't advertise it. Nobody went to see it. You blew it on the awards show. This should have been nominated for Best Picture. I have not had one person tell me that they saw this movie and they didn't like it. You blew it for not getting in an original song nomination, which it deserved. We've been championing this movie forever. People love this movie. We've been tweeting, Andy was tweeting the Weinstein Company back in the summer saying, we want to throw a screening to get more people to see your movie. Yeah. Contact me and tell us how. Nothing. They blew it so hard with this movie, and it's so disappointing.
You can see it on Netflix, so if you have not watched it yet, please go watch it on Netflix. There's no reason not to. Charlie, yes.
I just wanted to say I'm very happy The Lobster was nominated. No one's excited that it got recognition, because that's what the screenplay nominations are about, is hey, this was really weird. We don't know what to do with it. Here.
And also, I'm very happy to see Mike Mills, 20th Century Women. Oh my God, that movie was so brilliant that Annette Bening was left off of the Best Actress category. Makes me nauseous!
She gets screwed again.
She is so brilliant in this film. Everybody is so great in this movie. Mike Mills is the man. I'm very happy to see him nominated for screenplay. I am bummed it did not get more love, but we want to know what you guys think. What do you think should have been nominated? You can always tweet us at SJ News. You can comment below. You can always click here for more Screen Junkies. La La Land, Best Picture. Bye.